The morning began like any other in Savannah. Quiet streets, dew on the porch rails, a sun too gentle to guess what kind of heartbreak it was about to witness. But on that corner near Maple Street Market, two little girls stood barefoot, holding something small and tragic in their hands, a pair of worn-out pink slippers. How much for those sweethearts, a woman asked as she passed. Emma looked up, her lips trembling. "Whatever you can give, ma'am. Our mama's sick, and she needs medicine." That single line made the vendor freeze. You could almost hear hearts crack behind the fruit stands. It wasn't the first time poverty showed its face in this neighborhood, but never with eyes that clear or voices that steady. Within the first minute of this story, you might think you know where it's headed, but stay with it. Because what these 6-year-old twins did next will make you question what real love, sacrifice, and grace truly look like. So, tell me, what would you do if the only thing you owned could buy your mother one more day of life? Comment below before you hear what happened next. It had been 3 days since Anna Miller had eaten more than a spoonful of soup. Her breath came shallow now, her skin pale against the thrift store sheets. The twins tried to wake her that morning, shaking her shoulder gently. Mama whispered, "Lily, you gotta drink some water." But Anna only blinked once, too weak to speak. On the bedside table, the medicine bottle was empty, just one more thing they couldn't afford to refill. Emma and Lily looked at each other the way only twins can, half a glance, a full decision. They went to the corner of the room, where their slippers sat, soles cracked, straps loose. They were once bubblegum pink, bought last Christmas from the dollar store when their mother still baked pies, and laughter filled the house. Emma picked them up carefully, dusting them off as if they were gold. "Someone will buy them," she said. "They have to." Outside, the world looked normal. People were walking dogs, rushing to work, carrying coffee cups. Nobody knew that 2 children had made the kind of choice adults spend a lifetime trying to avoid. The twins walked hand in hand toward Maple Street Market, their feet pressing against the cold pavement. Each step left a faint mark of dust and courage. At the first stall, a man selling old books shook his head kindly. "Sorry, girls, not today." The next one, a flower vendor, smiled with pity, but turned away when customers approached. Still, they kept walking, holding the slippers out like an offering. Finally, at the far end of the row, an old veteran looked up from his folding chair. "Why are you selling those shoes, little angels?" "For Mama," Lily said, her voice barely above a whisper. "She's really sick, sir. The doctor said she needs medicine, but we don't got no money." He looked at them for a long moment, then reached into his wallet. But before he could hand over the bills, a man's shadow fell across the table. "Hold on," he said softly. The twins turned. He was tall, mid-30s, sunburnt face, a carpenter's hands rough but gentle. His name was Daniel Carter, though they didn't know that yet. "Where's your mama now?" he asked. "At home," Emma replied, "but she can't get up anymore." Something in her tone, flat too old for her age, made him pause. "You're selling your slippers for her?" Emma nodded. "It's all we got left." Daniel looked down at the slippers' torn fabric, tiny footprints still inside. Then he did something unexpected. He bought them for $50 and handed the money to Emma. "This is for your mama, but keep your slippers," he said, placing them gently back into her hands. "No child should walk barefoot in this world." The girls stared, unsure what to say. For a moment, time seemed to stretch, a single act of kindness bending the air. Then they ran home, clutching the bill like a lifeline. When they reached the house, Anna was still on the bed, eyes half closed. "Mama, look," Lily cried. "A man helped us. We can get your medicine now." Anna blinked in disbelief, tears filling the corners of her eyes. How she whispered. Emma held out the slippers. We tried to sell them, but he said we should keep them. He gave us money anyway." Anna pressed her lips together, torn between pride and gratitude. "You shouldn't have done that, my loves," she said weakly. "But you saved me." Outside, the afternoon sun rose higher, painting the cracked walls gold. The twins didn't know it yet, but that simple exchange, the selling of 2 old slippers, had set something in motion. Daniel would come back that night following the faint trail of laughter he couldn't shake from his mind. And when he knocked on the Millers' door, their story would take a turn no one in Savannah would ever forget. Because sometimes miracles don't roar from the heavens. Sometimes they walk quietly down a market aisle, wearing work boots and a heart too big for this world. A year before those slippers ever touched the market pavement, the Miller house was filled with sunlight and the smell of cinnamon rolls. Back then, the days started with music, Anna humming old country songs, while the twins Emma and Lily chased each other around the kitchen with flour-dusted hands. Their small bakery stall on Bay Street wasn't much a counter and oven that wheezed like an old man, and a chalkboard menu, but it was enough. Anna would wake before dawn, knead dough by hand, and load her trays into the back of a borrowed pickup truck. By sunrise, the scent of her pies floated through downtown Charleston, drawing people in like bees to honey. The twins thought their mother could do anything. She never let them see how tired she was, or how she'd count coins behind the counter when she thought they weren't looking. Every Sunday after church, she'd take them to the park by the river, feed the ducks, and promise them that one day they'd have a shop with their name on the door. Miller's Bakery, sweetness that stays. They believed her completely. Then came the night that rewrote their lives. It was early spring, the sky swollen with rain. Anna had just finished delivering an order of strawberry pies to a catering client. She was crossing the road when headlights swung too fast around the corner. A truck, skidded tires screamed, and before she could even turn metal met bone. The sound still haunted those who saw it happen. When she opened her eyes again, everything was pain and sirens. At the hospital, doctors spoke in slow, heavy tones. The damage to her legs was severe. Walking again might take years, if it ever happened at all. Insurance wouldn't cover half of it, and the bills began to stack like bricks on her chest. She tried to smile through it, telling the twins she'd be fine, that this was just a long nap. But when the nurses wheeled her into a smaller room and the bakery phone stopped ringing, even she could feel the dream slipping away. Jake, their father, came, once stood in the doorway, eyes darting anywhere but her face. "I can't handle this," he muttered. "I didn't sign up to raise 2 kids alone while you—" He didn't finish the sentence. He just left. That night, Anna stared at the ceiling tiles and realized that heartbreak doesn't always come from strangers. Sometimes it's the sound of a door clicking shut behind the person who promised forever. For weeks after the accident, the twins stayed with the neighbor, Mrs. Collins, while Anna lay in the recovery ward. They'd sneak down the hall after visiting hours, small hands clutching a brown paper bag filled with drawings they made for her. Mama Lily whispered one night, pressing a crayon picture to her chest. "You can have my legs. I don't need both." Anna laughed through her tears, because how do you tell a child that love isn't enough to fix what's broken? When she was finally discharged, Anna returned to a house that felt smaller. Her wheelchair barely fit through the doorway. The bakery equipment sat in storage collecting dust. Rent notices arrived like clockwork, each stamped with a red warning. She sold what she could, the stand mixer, the old cash register, even her wedding ring, to buy food and pay the light bill. But she refused to sell the twin slippers or the worn photo from their last picnic by the lake. In that photo, the 3 of them sat under an oak tree, sunlight pooling on their faces. Emma had frosting on her nose, Lily's hair was tangled from the wind, and Anna looked like the happiest woman in South Carolina. On the worst days, when the pain clawed up her spine and the medicine bottle ran empty, she'd look at that picture and whisper, "We'll get back there." Somehow, the twins would sit beside her on the mattress, one on each side, tracing her fingers with theirs. They didn't talk about the bakery anymore, or the father who'd vanished. They talked about what they'd do when she got better, how they'd make cookies in shapes of hearts, stars, and angels. The neighborhood changed too. People who once smiled at Anna on market days now passed with quick nods and quiet pity. But every so often, kindness found its way in. Mrs. Collins dropped off leftovers. A retired nurse came by with extra bandages. Even the landlord, gruff and impatient, let the rent slide a month or two. It wasn't much, but it reminded Anna that humanity, while fragile, still had its sparks. Then winter crept in. The cold made her joints ache worse, and the power was cut off for 3 days. She tried to stay strong for the girls, wrapping them in her arms beneath a single blanket, whispering stories of summer afternoons and warm pastries. The twins would giggle softly, pretending to smell the cinnamon in the air. But beneath those giggles lived a quiet understanding that children shouldn't have to know their mother was fading. The night before the morning, they sold their slippers. Anna tried to sit up to say goodnight, but her body wouldn't obey. She looked at Emma and Lily, already curled on the floor beside her bed, and whispered, "Don't let hunger steal your kindness." It was a phrase she'd repeated often, a promise she wanted them to keep long after she was gone. Outside, the rain began again, tapping gently against the cracked window. Inside, the twins held each other close, 2 tiny hearts beating against the silence. They didn't know what tomorrow would bring. But somewhere deep down they understood that love, real love, sometimes asks you to give up what little you have left just to keep someone else alive. Daniel Carter hadn't planned on stopping that afternoon. He was just passing through Savannah, his old pickup loaded with lumber, heading to a renovation job 2 towns over. But something about those 2 barefoot girls on the market sidewalk wouldn't leave his mind. Maybe it was the way they clutched each other's hands like soldiers walking into battle. Maybe it was the sound of their voices, steady, not begging, just honest. He had handed them the $50 and watched them disappear down the street, their laughter trailing behind them like a song that didn't belong in a place that poor. He told himself he'd done his part. But halfway down the highway, he hit the brakes. An hour later, he found himself standing in front of a sagging house at the end of Birchwood Lane, guided by a fruit vendor who remembered the girls. The paint peeled from the walls and a broken tricycle lay in the yard. Daniel hesitated. He wasn't the kind of man who interfered. But something told him this wasn't about charity, it was about decency. He climbed the porch steps and knocked gently. Inside, a faint voice called, "Come in." The room smelled of antiseptic and cold air. Anna Miller lay on a thin mattress near the window, her skin pale, her breathing shallow. The twins sat beside her, their faces lighting up when they saw him. "It's you," Lily gasped. "You came back?" Daniel smiled, removing his cap. "I figured I owed you ladies a visit. Wanted to make sure your mama's okay." Anna tried to sit up but winced. "Sir, you didn't have to." He stopped her with a small wave. "Name's Daniel Carter, and I think I did have to." He glanced around the room, bare walls, a single flickering lamp, a loaf of bread half wrapped in plastic. "You've got some brave girls here." Anna's lips trembled. "They shouldn't have gone out." "I told them not to." Daniel crouched down beside her. "They did it because they love you. That's something right there." Her eyes filled with tears, the kind that come from exhaustion more than sadness. "Love doesn't buy medicine, Mr. Carter." He nodded slowly. "Maybe not. But love's what makes strangers stop their trucks and come back." For a moment, neither spoke. The room hummed with quiet, the ticking of an old clock, the creak of the floorboards under Daniel's boots. Then he said, "What medicine do you need?" Anna shook her head. "You've already done enough." "Ma'am," he said softly, "I've seen enough folks die from pride, too. Tell me what she needs." It took her a moment to answer. Painkillers and antibiotics. The doctor said without them the infection might spread. Her voice broke. "I can't even get to the clinic." Daniel stood, pulled a small notebook from his pocket, and wrote something down. "I'll take care of it. No arguments." Emma looked up wide-eyed. "You're like an angel," he chuckled. "Nah, angels don't need coffee to stay awake." When he left, the twins followed him to the porch. "Will Mama be okay?" Lily asked. "She will," he promised. "I'll make sure of it." That night, Daniel drove to the 24-hour pharmacy and paid for every prescription on the list, plus groceries, milk bread soup, a jar of strawberry jam because he remembered how kids loved that stuff. By the time he got back, the sky was dark and the house glowed dimly through the window. He knocked again. Anna's eyes widened when she saw the bags. "Why are you doing this?" she whispered. Daniel set the medicine on the table. "Because once upon a time someone did it for me." He didn't tell her the rest, the years he'd spent sleeping in his truck after his wife died, the stranger who gave him a job building porches until he could stand on his own 2 feet again. He just knew he couldn't walk away from this family. He cooked that night in a skillet so old the handle wobbled. The smell of soup filled the room, mixing with the faint scent of hope. The twins ate like they hadn't tasted warmth in weeks. Anna tried to refuse, but Daniel poured her a bowl anyway. Between bites, the girls told him stories about the bakery, about the lake, where they used to feed ducks, about their father, who left a long, long time ago. Daniel listened without interrupting. He didn't say, "I'm sorry." People said that too easily. Instead, he just nodded, letting them talk until their voices softened with sleep. When Anna drifted off, he covered her with the blanket and stepped outside. The night air was heavy with magnolia and rain. He leaned against the porch railing, looking up at the stars. He wasn't sure what tomorrow would bring, but he knew this: he couldn't drive away again. The next morning, Anna woke to find the house quiet except for the clatter of dishes. Daniel was in the kitchen making breakfast. "You don't have to," she began, but he cut her off. "I know, but I want to. I got a few days off. Thought I'd help fix this place up a bit. You got a leaky roof." She smiled faintly. "You can tell from here." He pointed upward. "Raindrops on the ceiling told me." Over the next few days, he patched the roof, repaired the porch steps, and replaced a broken window pane. He taught the twins how to hammer nails and sandwood, their laughter echoing through the yard. Emma painted an old wooden board that read, "Home Sweet Home," and nailed it crookedly beside the door. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the trees, Anna wheeled herself to the doorway and watched them. Daniel was teaching Lily how to hold the hammer steady. The light caught his face, tired but kind. Something inside her stirred a feeling she hadn't allowed herself in a long time. Gratitude, maybe, or trust. When he caught her watching, he smiled. "You ever bake any more?" She shook her head. "Can't stand long enough. And I sold my oven." He glanced toward his truck. "I've got tools. Maybe we can build you a new stand, something low enough for a chair." She stared at him, unsure if he was joking, but his eyes told her he meant it. That night, when the twins were asleep, Anna whispered, "Why us, Daniel? There are 100 families out there like mine." He looked at her for a long moment. "Maybe because your girls reminded me what courage looks like. Maybe because helping you feels like remembering who I used to be." The silence that followed wasn't awkward, it was full of things that didn't need words. Outside, the cicadas sang and the smell of rain rolled in again. Daniel stayed until the first thunder cracked across the sky. He stood stretched and said quietly, "You rest. Tomorrow we'll start something new." Anna watched him walk to his truck, headlights flashing once before disappearing down the road. For the first time in a year, she let herself believe that tomorrow could hold something more than survival. Maybe it could hold beginnings. The hospital room was brighter than Anna expected. After so many months of darkness at home, even the pale blue walls felt like sunlight. Machines hummed softly beside her, the rhythm of healing replacing the silence of pain. She woke to find Daniel asleep in the chair next to her bed, his head tilted back, hands folded loosely across his chest. On the windowsill sat two paper cranes neatly folded by Emma and Lily, their childish handwriting scrawled across the wings, "Fly Mama." She blinked slowly, trying to piece together how she'd gotten there. The last thing she remembered was falling her body, refusing to move, the girls' cries echoing somewhere far away. Then there was Daniel's voice, firm but calm, calling for help. Now she was here, clean sheets, white light, and the faint scent of antiseptic. When the doctor entered, Daniel stirred awake. "You're the lucky one," the doctor said with a warm smile. "If you'd waited another day, that infection would have taken your leg." Anna's throat tightened. She turned her head toward Daniel. "You did this." He shrugged. "Just drove the car." "No," she said softly, eyes glistening. "You saved me." The doctor went on to explain that her leg could heal with physical therapy and rest. It wouldn't be easy, but she could walk again. The words settled into Anna's chest like a hymn she didn't dare believe. When the doctor left, Daniel leaned forward. "You've got a second chance," he said. "We'll take it slow. You're not alone anymore." For the first time in a long while, she smiled without forcing it. The days that followed were a blur of therapy sessions, cautious steps, and tears that came out of nowhere. Every morning, Daniel arrived early with coffee and a lunchbox packed by the twins. "Fuel from your fan club," he'd joke. Emma and Lily stayed with Grace, Daniel's sister, a nurse who lived just outside the city. Grace had a way about her, kind eyes, steady voice, that instantly made the girls feel safe. She taught them how to braid their hair, how to bake muffins, how to say grace before dinner. When Anna was strong enough to move from bed to wheelchair, Grace brought the twins to visit. The moment they saw their mother upright, they screamed with joy, their small bodies crashing into her lap. "You're sitting up," Mama Lily shouted. "You're getting better." Emma pressed her cheek against Anna's shoulder, whispering, "We told you miracles are real." Daniel stood back, watching the reunion quietly. Grace nudged him with her elbow. "You did good, big brother." He looked down, embarrassed. "Didn't do much." Grace smiled. "Sometimes showing up is the biggest thing." Weeks passed. Anna moved from wheelchair to walker, then to crutches. Every step felt like reclaiming a piece of her life. Daniel came by after work, sometimes helping with her therapy, sometimes just talking. He told her stories about his travels, small towns, carpentry jobs, the people he met along the way. She listened, sometimes laughing, sometimes falling silent, realizing how long it had been since she'd had an adult conversation that wasn't about bills or pain. One afternoon, when the therapist asked her to try walking 10 steps alone, she hesitated. Daniel was beside her, steadying her elbow. "You can do this," he said. "I'm right here." The first step was shaky, the second worse. By the fifth, her leg burned with effort. But when she reached 10, she broke down in tears. "I can walk," she whispered, half in disbelief. Daniel grinned. "Told you. You're tougher than you think." When she was discharged, Daniel drove her home. But it wasn't the same crumbling house she had left behind. The porch had been repaired, the leaky roof patched, and the front yard cleared of weeds. A wooden sign hung by the door, painted by Emma and Lily, "Welcome home, Mama." Anna's hand flew to her mouth. "You did all this." Daniel scratched the back of his neck. "Had some help. Your girls are pretty handy." Inside, Grace and the twins had cooked a simple dinner, chicken soup and warm bread. The smell filled the room like forgiveness. They ate together, laughter echoing through the walls that once held only silence. For the first time, the house felt like a home again. Over the next few weeks, Daniel built a small workbench near the kitchen window, a new bakery station designed for sitting height. "You said you missed baking," he told her, "so I figured we'd fix that." Anna ran her fingers along the smooth wood, speechless. "I don't know how to thank you." He smiled. "You don't have to. Just make me a pie someday." She laughed, a sound that filled the room like sunlight breaking through clouds. With Grace's help, Anna began baking again. The twins handed out cookies to neighbors who soon started knocking on the door, asking if Miss Anna was selling. Within a month, she was supplying pastries to a local coffee shop. The extra money paid for therapy groceries, even a few new toys for the girls. Every batch she made smelled like redemption sugar butter and second chances. Sometimes, late at night, she'd sit on the porch with Daniel after the girls were asleep. They'd talk about little things, the stars, the weather, their pasts. One night she asked, "Why do you help people you barely know?" He looked out toward the dark horizon. "Because I've been where you are. When my wife died, I thought my story was over. Then someone helped me get back up. I guess I'm just paying it forward." Anna reached out, placing her hand on his. "Then I hope someday I can do the same for someone else." He met her eyes and said softly, "You already are." The months rolled by. Each day brought something new. Emma's first spelling bee, Lily's art project winning a ribbon, Anna baking her first cake, standing up without support. The house buzzed with life again. Grace visited often, bringing supplies, or just to share a meal. Sometimes, when the four of them sat around the table, Anna, the twins, Daniel, and Grace, it felt like the family they all needed, but never expected. On the day Anna took her first steps without crutches, the twins clapped so hard their palms turned red. Daniel filmed it on his phone, laughing through tears. "Look at you go," he said. "Strongest woman I know." Anna turned to him, breathless tears running down her cheeks. "No, Daniel. I'm only standing because you listened." That evening, as the sun dipped low and painted the yard gold, Daniel fixed the last piece of the porch railing. The girls were chasing fireflies, their giggles floating through the air. Anna leaned against the doorway, steady and proud. For the first time in years, she didn't feel broken. She felt whole because someone had seen her, believed in her, and refused to give up. Healing, she realized, wasn't just about the body. It was about the people who stood beside you until you could stand on your own. Spring returned to Savannah that year with a softness Anna hadn't felt in a long time. The air smelled of honeysuckle. The yard was alive with color, and the laughter of her daughters filled every corner of the little house. Life had begun to settle into something gentle and sure. Daniel still came by, most mornings fixing something that didn't really need fixing or dropping off supplies for the bakery. Sometimes he stayed for dinner, and the girls would climb into his lap afterward, listening to his stories until their eyes grew heavy. It wasn't spoken out loud, but everyone knew that the emptiness that once lived in that home had finally been replaced by peace. Then, one Saturday afternoon, as the bakery's new sign was being hung above the door, Miller's hearth, a shadow appeared at the edge of the yard. Anna turned and froze. Standing by the gate was a man she hadn't seen in almost 5 years. Jake. His hair was thinner, his shoulders slumped, and the confidence he once wore like armor had been replaced by something smaller, humbler. He clutched his cap in both hands, his eyes darting between Anna and the twins. "Anna," he said quietly, "you look well." Daniel was standing a few feet away, paintbrush still in his hand. The twins came running from the porch, but Anna stepped forward before they could reach him. Her voice was steady, but her fingers trembled. "What are you doing here, Jake?" He looked down at the dirt. "I heard you were sick. I came to see the girls. to see you." There was a long silence, broken only by the sound of wind brushing through the trees. Anna studied him, the man who once walked out of a hospital room without looking back, leaving her to face the wreckage alone. She had imagined this moment 100 times, but now that it was here, the anger she'd carried for years had dulled into something else. "You left when I needed you most," she said softly. "You left them when they didn't even understand what goodbye meant." Jake swallowed hard. "I know. I've spent every day since trying to forget what I did and every night remembering it again. I'm sorry, Anna, I can't undo it, but maybe I can make things right." Daniel stepped forward, then not aggressively, just firmly. "The girls have a family now," he said. Jake's gaze flicked to him. "And who are you?" "Someone who stayed," Daniel replied. The words hung in the air, simple but final. Anna looked at Daniel, then back at Jake. "You don't get to walk in and claim what you abandoned," she said. "They're safe. They're loved. That's all that matters." Jake nodded slowly. "I see that. I can tell they're happy." His eyes met hers, and for the first time he looked truly broken. "You don't have to forgive me, but I needed to tell you I'm sorry." She didn't answer right away. Then, after a moment, she whispered, "I forgive you, Jake. But forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. You'll always be their father. But this," she gestured toward the house, the twins, the man beside her. "This is our home now." He lowered his head. "Take care of them, Anna." And just like that, he turned and walked away, disappearing down the street where the light began to fade. That evening, as the girls helped Daniel clean the paintbrushes, Anna sat on the porch, her hands wrapped around a mug of tea. The world felt lighter somehow, like a chapter had quietly closed. Daniel joined her, his hands rough and warm. "You okay?" he asked. "I am," she said, surprising herself with how true it felt. "I think I finally let go." He nodded, glancing toward the twins who were now dancing barefoot on the grass, their laughter echoing through the dusk. "You've built something beautiful here," he said. "We built it," she corrected. Over the following months, Miller's Hearth became more than just a bakery. It turned into a gathering place. Locals came for Anna's pies and stayed for the sense of belonging that hung in the air. Daniel helped expand the kitchen. Grace organized weekend bake sales to raise money for the clinic that had once treated Anna for free. The twins, now in school, would race home every afternoon to knead dough beside their mother. They wore matching aprons and flour on their cheeks like a badge of honor. On one of those golden evenings, as the smell of apple pie filled the house, Emma looked up and said, "Mama, do you think Daddy Jake will ever come back?" Anna paused, wiping her hands on her apron. "Maybe," she said. "But you know what? Family isn't just about who leaves or who comes back. It's about who stays and who loves you every single day." Lily glanced toward Daniel, who was fixing the back door again as always. "Then we already have a daddy," she said proudly. Anna's eyes met Daniel's, and they both smiled, a quiet understanding passing between them. A year later, on the anniversary of the bakery's reopening, the whole town gathered for a small celebration. Grace brought balloons, the twins baked cupcakes, and Daniel unveiled a new wooden frame hanging near the front counter. Inside was an old worn pair of slippers, small, pink, and patched with thread. Beneath it, on a piece of hand-carved oak, were the words, "The day we sold hope to buy love." Customers stopped to read it often, falling silent afterward. For Anna, it wasn't a symbol of pity, it was proof. Proof that love, when tested, could still win. That night, after the crowd had gone, Anna locked the door and stood by the counter. The lights glowed softly across the pastries, the tables, the framed slippers. Daniel came up behind her, wrapping an arm around her shoulders. "Looks like we did all right," he said. She leaned into him, smiling. "Better than all right. Outside, the twins were chasing lightning bugs in the yard, their laughter drifting through the open window. The sound was pure and steady, the kind of sound that makes you believe the world can heal. Anna turned to Daniel. "You know, I used to think miracles were rare," she said. "Now I think they're just quiet." He kissed her forehead. "Yeah," he whispered. "Sometimes they come wearing work boots." The night settled around them, gentle and forgiving. Inside the little bakery on Birchwood Lane, 3 hearts that had once been broken beat in rhythm again. And for the first time, Anna knew the truth she'd been chasing all along. Family isn't always the one you're born into. It's the one you build, one act of love at a time. The story of Anna Miller and her daughters Emma and Lily began with despair and ended in grace. What started as a tale of 2 barefoot girls trying to sell their worn slippers to save their dying mother became a journey about courage, kindness, and the quiet strength of human hearts. Through tragedy, betrayal, and hardship, they found something far greater than survival. They found belonging. Anna's accident stole her legs, but not her spirit. When everyone else walked away, her love for her daughters kept her alive. Emma and Lily, too young to understand the weight of the world, carried it anyway, with the kind of innocence only love can give. And then came Daniel, a stranger who listened, who didn't see poverty or weakness, but saw people worth saving. His compassion lit the dark corners of their lives and showed that sometimes the smallest gestures, buying old slippers, offering a ride, fixing a roof, can change everything. Together, they built something more powerful than blood or money. They built family. A family chosen by love, not bound by circumstance. In that tiny bakery on Birchwood Lane, the smell of apple pie and laughter mixed with forgiveness and healing. Every loaf, every smile, every shared meal became a symbol of renewal. When Anna framed those pink slippers on the bakery wall, it wasn't to remember suffering. It was to honor the moment they traded desperation for hope. What makes this story so deeply human is not its miracles, but its choices. Anna chose forgiveness over bitterness. Daniel chose to stay when it would have been easier to walk away. And the twins chose faith when the world offered none. These choices are what turn ordinary lives into extraordinary ones. The lesson here is timeless and urgent. Love is not about what we have, it's about what we give when we have nothing left. In a world that often feels divided, this story reminds us that kindness still holds the power to heal. You don't have to be wealthy or strong to make a difference. You just have to care enough to act. Maybe that means checking on a neighbor who's struggling. Maybe it's forgiving someone who hurt you. Or maybe it's simply believing that compassion still matters in a world that moves too fast to notice pain. Anna's story asks one quiet but powerful question. What if we all became someone's Daniel? Someone who listens. Someone who shows up. Someone who turns a stranger's despair into tomorrow's hope. Because that's where true change begins, not with grand gestures, but with small, consistent acts of love. And if you've stayed with this story to the end, it's because a part of you already believes that too. Maybe you saw yourself in Anna's perseverance, in Emma and Lily's faith, or in Daniel's simple decency. Let that feeling stay with you. Let it remind you that no matter how dark the day, kindness is always an option. If this story touched your heart, if it made you think, or if it reminded you of the goodness that still exists in the world, don't keep it to yourself. Share it. Let it ripple outward. And before you go, take a second to subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us keep telling stories that inspire hope, heal hearts, and remind us all that love in the end is the greatest miracle of all.